very good back that's actually kind of fun.
Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church in Champaign. My name is Reverend Sally Fritchie, and I serve as the Associate Minister of this congregation alongside our interim lead minister, Reverend Karen Bush, or KB. We are a church of many different theologies and identities, united by a shared commitment to building community, seeking inspiration, promoting justice, and finding peace. We're still asking that we all remain masked when we gather together on Sunday mornings, but we want to be able to welcome even the most vulnerable into our worship space. Please look around at the color-coded lanyards of your neighbors and be aware and respectful of others' needs and boundaries. Also be aware that there will be people speaking unmasked from the pulpit, so if you're not comfortable being in the very front rows, feel free to shift around. If you're nervous about being packed so close here in the sanctuary, we have a whole spillover space over in Fellowship Hall where the service is being live streamed on a projector. That space is also great if you just need to run around, enjoy some wiggle room, stretch your legs. We are a congregation of all ages, which means we embrace all the noises or little disruptions that our kids can bring into a Sunday morning. As always, people of any age are welcome to get a coloring kit from the box near the entryway, just where the lanyards are. And after our time for all ages, the kids will be invited
downstairs with their teachers for religious exploration.
You can all start looking forward to a relaxing of our mask requirements in the coming weeks as transmission rates continue to drop, and the church staff consult with our COVID task force lay leaders to pick a Sunday for switching over to masks optional in our sanctuary. For now, keep your ears open for more updates. This morning will be centered around a possible big change that is coming to our Unitarian Universalist tradition. For several decades, UU congregations all over have looked to a standard set of what we call principles and sources, language that helps us articulate our commitments and inspirations that we have in common, despite our otherwise very theologically diverse communities. You've heard me and countless others speak from up here about those principles, the inherent dignity and worth of every person, the free and responsible search for truth and meaning, the interdependent web of life. All that language came from the same place. And you can find our principles and sources printed in every single copy of our hymnals. A typical UU congregation, us included, doesn't actually pay too much attention to big national denominational conversations, the UUA, the Unitarian Universal Association. So many of you might be surprised to hear that there has been talk of big changes at the national level. Complete overhaul of the principles and brand new language being proposed for some of the central texts of our faith. No one can force us to adopt any changes ourselves, but I figure the time has come for UUCUC to learn about and engage with the idea of these changes. Start thinking about the ways that making changes to familiar language can open new possibilities for us and for our community. So whether this is your first Sunday with us or your 1,000th, whether you're here in the sanctuary, across in Fellowship Hall, or watching from afar, know that you are welcome here, and this service is for you. May you find in it something that you need. This congregation chooses to begin every Sunday with a formal acknowledgement of the indigenous peoples of this land. It's a practice that connects us to the history of this specific place, to our role as stewards and members of a community that extends beyond our own present moment. Wherever you're joining us from today, take a moment to let your mind sink down into the deep history of that place and honor the plants, animals, land, and people who have belonged there over the millennia. Here on Green Street, we worship on the land of the Kaskaskia, Miamiwa, Bodwewadni, Kickapoo, Peoria, and Oceti-Sakowin. These are communities that still exist today and continue to fight for recognition, self-determination, and the preservation of our shared earth. We'll pause to take a breath in honor of those lives, and as a reminder to support their ongoing efforts wherever we can. Thank you. And now I will invite brand new UUCUC members, Allison and Roy, with their family, to come forward and light the flaming chalice, symbol of our Unitarian Universalist tradition.
We light our chalice this morning with the words excerpted from This Way, written in 1922 by Universalist theologian Louis Fisher. Universalists are often asked to tell where they stand. The only true answer to give to this question is that we do not stand at all. We move. We do not stand still, nor do we defend any immovable positions. We grow, as all living things forever must do. The main question is not where we stand, but which way we are moving. Our main interest is to perceive what is true progress and to keep our movements in line with that, and not to allow ourselves to move round and round in circles like a squirrel in its cage. Old, worn phrases are always losing their old meanings and must forever be finding new meanings in the light of new experiences.
you. And now I invite us all to please stand if standing is comfortable for you and join in singing our opening hymn, number 361 in the Gray Hymnal, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In.
We will sing all 5 verses. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your ears to the song. Open your ears to the song. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your hearts, everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Don't be afraid of some change. Don't be afraid of some change. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in.
Beautiful. Well, this is the time in our service when we usually tell a story or do an activity that's inviting to use of a variety of ages and learning styles. This morning there will be some hands-on stuff happening up here, so if you're interested, you're welcome to come up and hang out here on the steps or make your way up here at any time while I'm speaking if you're a little shy now and get interested when you see what is going to come out. Later on in our service this morning, we're going to be talking about change. We're going to talk about how things can change over time, how the most important parts can stay the same even when everything around them changes. We're going to talk about how Unitarian Universalism can change over time. And when I was thinking about things that change, I started to think about technology, which is something that I have seen change many, many times just in my lifetime. Has anyone here noticed technology change over time? No? So this week, Selena, our tech expert, was able to go digging at the Museum of the Grand Prairie for us, and she found some very cool fossils that the museum let us borrow. Now, these fossils are not dinosaur bones or shark teeth. They're technology fossils. Would you like to see some of them? Who knows what this is? What is it? A telephone. I'm going to pass it around. You guys can play with it. Touch it. That's right. And what do people do with that? They call people, of course. And how about this fossil? Does anyone know what this is? This is a Morse code machine. It was kind of like old texting. Yeah, you knew. How did what? An old typewriter? We don't have an old typewriter. Those are pretty heavy, so we didn't bring one. What about this one? Listen to that. An old camera. Pass that on how heavy it is. All right, here's a really old one. Does anyone know what this is? This, a pot? Yeah, kind of. It's a lamp. So you would fill it with fat. And then you could carry it around like a flashlight and light your way in the dark when you had to get up in the middle of the night and use the bathroom. Excuse me, the outhouse. All right, now I want to see one of my absolute favorite fossils. I heard someone say, that's an old telephone, so you recognize what it is. Listen. This one's a little too heavy to pick up, so I'm going to hand it down here. David's showing us how you would use it. You pick up one piece and talk into the other one. Now, all these things that we're touching and trying out, they seem like fossils now because they aren't so commonly used anymore. But each of them was once a huge leap in technology. It was a huge deal to be able to call people across long distance, to be able to use Morse code, to be able to record videos at home. And why did we stop using them so much? We got new things. It wasn't because they were bad or broken, bad technology. It's just because new options came along that made more sense and were easier for us to use. So even with all the change that happened, what things didn't change? Any ideas? What about, did people stop wanting to call each other? Now we have cell phones. Did people stop wanting to make videos of their friends and family, or did people stop needing a light to shine their way in the bathroom? It's true. We have different ways now. The purpose has stayed the same, but the way we do those things has changed a whole lot over time. And so in Unitarian Universalism, we've been using the same technology of the 7 principles for a long time, since 1985. You guys, that's ancient history. That's right around when people stopped using rotary phones and started using push-button phones. And now, a really wonderful team of UUs has come out with a possible new technology for us, meant to fulfill the same purposes, like calling people. It's okay, that part's supposed to come off. Took off the side of the video camera. So it's time for us all to figure out if the new technologies, the new words that we're being given, are going to be a way we can live our purpose even better than we could before. Just like any time we learn a new technology, it can be hard to adjust. And trying something new doesn't mean throwing away the old thing, or it doesn't mean the old thing is bad. But we know that change is a part of being alive. Things evolve, things change. And we can appreciate the past while we still embrace the future. Now, everyone who's holding a technology fossil, I'm going to ask you to please place it gently into this basket, which I'll put out front in front of the pulpit. And once you've placed your technology fossil in the basket, it's going to be time for our kids and teachers to head downstairs for your religious exploration and engagement classes. We don't have a song for you this morning, but if our front section of pews near the aisle would like to make an arch with your arms for the kids to run under, that is a fun way to give them our blessing, sprinkle them with love on their way out to their classes. Have fun downstairs, guys. Learn a lot. I think the corded wall phone almost went home with someone. Thank you all very much, and I hope that you enjoyed our technology fossils. Maybe help you appreciate your own fossils in boxes in your basement with new eyes. Each Sunday here at UUCUC, we make space to share the joys and sorrows that are closest to our hearts. We usually take a long pause with music to give everyone time to write down any personal joys or sorrows they're carrying and wish to share, either on a card or in an email message to joysandsorrows@uucuc.org. Then I'll read out those shared messages so that we can celebrate each other's joyful news and support each other's griefs. During the pause, while folks are writing and music is playing, those who wish to can also come forward and silently light a candle here at our altar table or at the table near the center of the sanctuary there. Together we'll hear a blessing song, Long Time Son, and while we listen and sing, you're invited to write down the joys and sorrows you would like to share. If you wish to, you can come forward to light a candle now for your joy or sorrow and leave your card here in the basket. Thank you all. From David Wolf. A joy for the amazing creativity in our technology, a sorrow for what it costs our Mother Earth. From Jody Hanger and Chris Hanauer. For our friend Seamus, who's undergoing triple bypass surgery tomorrow, and our friend Kathy, whose dad passed away last week. From Kai. Someone I thought loved me, betrayed me, and cheated with my best friend. A candle for Tom Newfer-Emsweiler and his wife Sharon. Tom has been in the hospital with an infection this past week, and when I wrote this, was waiting for antibiotics to do their job, and I just learned this morning, is officially discharged and home. Tom and Sharon are grateful for the support of their kids who live nearby and have appreciated the many loving messages they've received from church friends. A joy and sorrow from Ellen Jacobson. Spent some days in California with my 17-month-old granddaughter, who was a joy, but she was sad because she had a fever and felt bad. Human development is amazing. Too true. And finally, we light another candle in memory of Tyree Nichols, the senseless and violent death of yet another beautiful human being. This candle was written by Reverend KB from afar, joining us this morning. She writes, Tyree was just 29 years old when 5 policemen caused his death after stopping him at a traffic stop. His mother shared that her son was a beautiful soul who loved sunsets, photography, and skateboarding. In the words of President Barack Obama, the vicious, unjustified beating of Tyree Nichols and his ultimate death at the hands of the Memphis police is just the latest painful reminder of how far America still has to go
in fixing how we police our streets. Along with mourning Tyree and supporting his family, it's up to all of us to mobilize for lasting change. May true justice be done. May the day come soon when there is an end to all deaths by senseless violence. Amen. Please know for all the joys and sorrows that remain unspoken, they are held by this community all the same, even in silence. Know that you are part of something, a network of love that connects you to everyone who gathers here week after week. I pray that you feel held and supported by that love today and always. And I invite you to please take this moment of quiet prayer or meditation to find your own center, your own words, asking for what you need most right now. As the music plays, let us breathe together and rest in the stillness.
To organize new churches and fellowships, and to extend and strengthen liberal religion. 6, to encourage cooperation with men of goodwill in every land. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. We, as Unitarian Universalists, acknowledge that our circle of care doesn't stop at our church doors. We are deeply connected to the community we find ourselves in and to the wider world. Please continue to keep an eye on your e-news weekly newsletter for opportunities to show up, find support, get involved, and be part of this community. For families with middle and high schoolers, remember that this Saturday night, the youth group is having a late night here at church with a potluck dinner starting at 6, then games and activities until 10. You can contact Brian McDermott to let him know if you'll be there. And a reminder for us all that next Sunday, the first week of February, will be a multi-generational Sunday service with kids staying up here in the sanctuary with us, featuring interactive and hands-on opportunities to engage with the concept of love in action. Reverend KB and I will be leading together, and the service will be followed by an information fair during Fellowship Hall featuring all the social action groups at church, with ways to get involved in practical efforts that will make a difference in causes we care about. There are countless ways to get involved here, not just justice-centered, and we have a special message this Sunday highlighting the many teams working under the wider umbrella of congregational life here at UUCUC. If you're looking for ways to meet your fellow church members and build deeper connections, listen to this short message and consider reaching out beyond Sunday morning.
Good morning. My name is Peggy Patton. I'm a longtime member of the UUCUC Church and currently coordinate the hospitality teams at our church. I'm here to talk to you about Congregational Life Council. The Congregational Life Council encompasses a broad array of activities at UUCUC. Our hospitality teams, who serve as our ushers, welcomers, decorations, and snack providers each Sunday. Our Soul Matters groups, which are those small, intentional groups who regularly meet to build community and deepen spiritual discernment. And our Care Corps, who works to support pastoral concerns of our congregation and who also coordinates our caring congregation network of volunteers. But also under the Congregational Life umbrella are our new member classes and supports, our parent support group, the feminist book group, the older men's discussion group, the UU Women's Lunch Group, and various efforts at social engagement. The pandemic required some alternative approaches to congregational life, to be sure. Many of the activities I just mentioned continue to connect via Zoom. The Soul Matters groups and our other, what we call affinity groups, the book groups, the support groups, the mindfulness meditation group, provided essential connections when we felt most isolated by the pandemic. Because we weren't worshiping in person the first 2 years of the pandemic, the hospitality teams focused on providing supports in other ways, stocking our little food pantries, for example, sending cards to individuals at home, helping with upkeep of our church grounds, and meeting socially outdoors to maintain connections while we were remote. The groups under the Congregational Life umbrella welcome newcomers, whether you are a new member or have been attending church for a long time. We are coordinating 3 different community fairs during our fellowship hour in the coming weeks to help the congregation learn about the many opportunities for engagement at UUCUC. On Sunday, February 5th, there will be representatives of the various social action council teams on hand during fellowship hour. Other upcoming congregational life events include the coffee house scheduled for February 11th, coordinated by our music committee, a fun opportunity for all ages to share music, dance, poetry, storytelling, and more with a most appreciative audience. Watch your e-news for details about these events and other plans for upcoming intergenerational social engagement. I've been a member of this church for 35 years. My interest in and energy and time for involvements at the church have varied over the years. But each area of involvement has strengthened my connection to the church. During challenging times like the pandemic that we are coming out of, that connection kept me afloat. The goal of the Congregational Life Council is to help each member and friend also find meaningful connections at UUCUC. Hope that works for you too. Thank you.
Real interdependence and reliance on one another, we pass the plate and share our offering with an organization doing the work of justice in the world. For our January Sundays, of which today is the last, we are sharing our plate with the Chicago Abortion Fund, which provides direct financial, logistical, and emotional support to people seeking abortion care across the Midwest, including here in Champaign County. The fund hears from over 500 people a month seeking help accessing vital and necessary care, and returns 100% of its phone calls. You can give by text or through the online portal on our website, or if you're here in the sanctuary, the basket will be passed, and checks can be made out to UUCUC. Half of what you give will go towards sustaining the work of this church. The other half will go directly to the Chicago Abortion Fund. We invite you to give whatever is generous for you, and know that any amount you contribute will be gratefully received and put to use, helping make a real impact for people who need it. The basket will now be passed.
Call me by my name, know me in my truth, trust the sacred flame that burns in me and you. Listen to my song, I'm gentle and I'm strong, with a love I can't contain. Won't you call me by my name? Tell me who you are, let your truth be known. Cast away your fear, for you are not alone. Share your hopes and dreams, together we'll be free to rejoice with all our hearts. Won't you tell me who you are? As we come to learn the gifts we each can give, we offer up in turn a better life to live. The stories that we share will show us how to care. You can help me do my part if you tell me who you are. You can fill the world with grace if you call me by my name.
Today's service exists partly as an introduction to the actual text being proposed as a replacement for our current 7 principles and 6 sources. I'll go into the who, how, and why of where this actual language comes from in a bit, but first, it feels important to just hear it, as written, and open our hearts to the possibility of a future for Unitarian Universalism shaped by these new words. I'll ask that you listen not with your mental red pen at the ready, but with a love and appreciation for the thousands of fellow UUs who contributed to the process leading up to this proposed change. You should have an insert in your order of service with all of these words printed out, which I didn't actually check if we did. Do we have that? Amazing. So you can reread at your leisure, but for now, I would ask that you just listen as our readers share these words with us. You can even close your eyes if you want and try to hear in the words possibility. I'll invite my 3 readers, Jody, Jenna, and Paul, to come forward now and be the ones who give voice to these 6 intertwined values which all center around love. It begins. As Unitarian Universalists, we covenant congregation to congregation and through our association to support and assist one another in our ministries. We draw from our heritages of freedom, reason, hope, and courage, building on the foundation of love. Love is the power that holds us together and is at the center of our shared values. We are accountable to one another for doing the work of living our shared values through the spiritual discipline of love. Inseparable from one another, these shared values are
interdependence. We honor the interdependent web of all existence. We covenant to cherish Earth and all beings by creating and nurturing relationships of care and respect. With humility and reverence, we acknowledge our place in the great web of life, and we work to repair harm and damaged relationships.
Pluralism. We celebrate that we are all sacred beings, diverse in culture, experience, and theology. We covenant to learn from one another in our free and responsible search for truth and meaning. We embrace our differences and commonalities with love, curiosity, and respect.
Justice. We work to be a diverse, multicultural, beloved community where all thrive. We covenant to dismantle racism and all forms of systematic oppression. We support the use of inclusive democratic processes to make decisions.
Transformation. We adapt to the changing world. We covenant to collectively transform and grow spiritually and ethically. Openness to change is fundamental to our Unitarian and Universalist heritages, never complete and never perfect.
Generosity. We cultivate a spirit of gratitude and hope. We covenant to freely and compassionately share our faith, presence, and resources. Our generosity connects us to one another in relationships of interdependence and mutuality.
Equity. We declare that every person has the right to flourish with inherent dignity and worthiness. We covenant to use our time, wisdom, attention, and money to build and sustain fully accessible and inclusive communities.
Thank you, readers. Beautifully read. So, pop quiz time. Who can tell me what the 8 principles of Unitarian Universalism are? I would be very interested if someone felt comfortable coming up here and fully reciting all 8 principles. We all know that our congregations include people from all kinds of religious backgrounds who have all kinds of different beliefs about life and death, good and evil, God, humanity, everything else. But we still make promises to each other, and we try to make a positive difference in the world, and those promises and aspirations have for a long time been articulated in our 7 principles, which many congregations, including this one, have recently expanded to 8. Kids who grew up UU might remember using the 7 colors of the rainbow as a tool for learning about the principles. Red, respect all life. That's yellow, yearn to learn throughout life. But plenty of UUs can get about as far as the inherent worth and dignity of every person, free and responsible search, the interdependent web of life. Newcomers to UUism might get a handout with the principles on it, although it's usually tucked in alongside a lot of other information about UU history and congregational life and how to get involved in social justice and volunteering. I grew up UU. I deeply love and identify with our principles. I literally went to school for this. But even I can't come close to being able to rattle off word for word the language as it's printed in the front pages of our hymnals. One thing we can all agree on is that the principles we have now don't look a lot like those that were first adopted in 1961, which Margaret read for us at the beginning of the service. Gone are references to universal truth of loving God and man. Gone is the dignity of man, the value of brotherhood. Those original principles are what allowed our 2 historical denominations to merge into one. They were important. They were the product of a great deal of effort and care, meticulous wordsmithing, and a painstakingly struck balance between the various factions within newborn Unitarian Universalist Association. To quote one of my favorite UU historians, "Flowers and flames are sufficiently nonspecific to permit us to accept them as appropriate symbols. It's tougher when it comes to words." When the first set of principles was adopted into the bylaws of the new organization, it was with a plan to review and rewrite them every 15 years or so, in order to incorporate necessary changes. And changes were definitely necessary. Over time, this section of the organization's bylaws became, among other things, more gender inclusive and much more religiously pluralist. Each change wasn't about throwing away what came before, but about reflecting the needs and identities of current UUs. Some religious traditions are proudly defined by their ancient and unchanging foundations, whether that's a leader's lineage traced back for generations, or a set of beliefs that were written in stone thousands of years ago, or scriptures that are still revered word for word in the original language. Some religions strive to remain unchanged and unchangeable now and forever. We are not one of those religions. Not that Unitarian Universalism doesn't have deep historical roots, because we do, but we're a tradition defined by change. We call ourselves a living tradition. And if you have a gray hymnal handy, just look at the cover to illustrate the point. Singing the living tradition. A living tradition, like a living document, is one that is still accepting edits. Being a living tradition means we continue to grow and morph and change. We believe that divine inspiration can come from nearly anywhere, not limited to one particular type of person, one particular culture, or one long ago time period. When we're at our best, we recognize the value of new voices and new thoughts. I can't lie, it's a little unsettling to think about a change as big as completely rewriting the UU principles. Maybe especially for folks like me who grew up a whole lifetime within UUism, for whom the principles are just part of the way it's always been. I mean, I can look back at those old corded phones and chunky video cameras and feel grateful for the advancement of technology, but I'm still going to complain every time I need to learn how to use a new phone. I'm still going to struggle and feel left behind when technology continues to move on beyond what I have gotten used to. It's an uncomfortable truth that despite our commitment to being a living tradition, those principles that we were supposed to revisit and rewrite every 15 years haven't been touched in over 37. They've started to solidify, be treated like the bedrock of our faith, instead of one generation's best stab at describing it. In the years since 1985, some attempts have been made, some changes proposed, but they all failed to get the needed votes at the annual General Assembly of UU congregations. And hey, maybe it's because in 1985 we came up with the most perfect articulation of UUism that could possibly exist. Maybe we shouldn't make any changes. I love the principles on both an institutional and personal level. I think they're beautiful and meaningful in a million different ways to every UU. I don't think change for change's sake is a compelling next step. But remember, even I have to admit to not being able to recall all the principles. I certainly preach about a few of my favorites more than the wordier ones in the middle. So just like with our changing technology, let's consider what unchanging purpose our written principles are serving. All those different phones were about making it easier for people to call each other and talk over long distances. It's possible that a new format or new language will make it easier for us to actually serve the purpose of our faith. What is it that we hope or expect something like written principles to do for us or for the world? You can think about your own answer to that question. How have you used the UU principles? Maybe you never think of them. Maybe you use them mostly to explain your religious affiliation to people who don't know what we are, to defend against accusations that UUs don't believe anything. Maybe you use them to teach kids, give them a basic foundation they can lean on, or as a personal touchstone and code of ethics to guide your own actions. All of these are legitimate and meaningful ways to engage with something like the principles, and all of them were answers when UUs nationwide were surveyed with this same question. Unitarian Universalism does not have a creed or a confession of faith, which other religions rely on to serve many of those functions, which means we UUs can become deeply attached to the specific language of our principles as a kind of substitute. And the more attached we become, the harder it is to consider changing. There's something this congregation's former lead minister, Reverend Florence, liked to say about the principles, which is that they're meant to be descriptive, not prescriptive. You don't have to sign on the dotted line agreeing with them to become a member. You don't have to recite them every Sunday, but they do a pretty good job of describing what we're all about here. In the 1800s, New England Unitarian churches used to publish occasional statements of what is commonly believed among us, a tradition that I think indirectly informs the way that we still use the principles. We don't all agree about many things, but here are some things that are commonly believed among us. In 1922, our chalice lighting reading, a Universalist author wrote, "Where do Universalists stand? We don't stand, we move." So today, we begin the process of asking ourselves once again, what direction do we want to move in? What are the things commonly believed among us now, and have they changed? Is it possible there's a different format, different language, a different technology, which might actually be better at serving the many purposes we've been putting the old principles to? Educating, guiding, reaching out, explaining our faith and our values. In 2020, the UUA brought together a team of UUs of a diversity of ages, races, genders, and backgrounds, and commissioned them with the task of finding out the answer to that question. Is there a better way? One of the members of the commission we might recognize, Paula Cole-Jones, who has spoken here at UUCUC before, and who was the organizer behind the push to adopt the 8th principle focused on racial justice. The commission was encouraged to think as freely as they could, to be imaginative and expansive in their vision for our shared future, and to find words that would encapsulate the aspirations and, more importantly, serve the purposes of Unitarian Universalists everywhere. They started with listening, hearing from UUs all over the nation about the current state of UUism, how they felt about the possibility of changing our long-standing written principles, and what they saw as the top priorities for our faith's future. Over the course of its work, the Commission engaged in 45 feedback sessions with 4,611 total participants. Their videos reached over 7,000 viewers, and their 29 surveys generated a total of 10,925 responses. In fact, this congregation last year combined forces with our neighbors in Peoria and Bloomington to have a multi-week Zoom discussion group on this very topic. One thing the Commission noticed right away was the phrase shared values kept popping up. A familiar phrase to any of you? It seemed to be central to why people choose to be and to stay Unitarian Universalist. Yet it seemed difficult for folks to articulate what those shared values specifically are. So in January 2023, this month, when the Commission published its proposal for new language, it was in the form not of principles, but of values. The text we read out earlier. I won't read it again here, but I will ask that we all take it home from our order of service and read it a few more times over the coming days and weeks. Give it a chance to resonate, bounce around our skulls and our hearts, not as a scary change, an outside threat, a replacement for our beloved principles, but as a natural evolution, an outgrowth of them, crafted and proposed by faithful UUs who have been raised in or saved by the principles as they were written 35 or more years ago. These new values, pluralism, equity, transformation, generosity, interdependence, and justice, all centered around the anchor of love, are meant to capture who we are and who we are striving to be. They refuse to be ranked or numbered in relation to one another, but instead are described as inseparable. This new draft doesn't demand that we throw out our long-beloved principles. In fact, they incorporate some of the exact same language. As UUs, throwing out old ways isn't really our thing, after all. We still read from the Bible. It just might not be the central text that we point to first, or the thing that we print on all our pamphlets and hand out to visitors. If you memorize the rainbow path as a kid, no one can take that from you. You will remember that for the rest of your life. And you can hold those principles sacred for all time. Nothing will change that. Because one thing the team serving on this commission has made perfectly clear is that this draft doesn't aim at perfection or at perfect consensus. There has never been a time in our faith tradition's history when every UU was 100% on board with all the language of the principles, sources, or whatever they were called at any given time. There has always been dissent. There has always been compromise. And there has always been a need for change since day one. Perhaps most importantly, this isn't meant to be permanent. The official draft of this new language ends with remarks from the authors saying, "We fully expect that one day another commission will review our work and significantly change it. We are writing this in pencil, not etching it in stone." Perhaps it will be better to think of the commitments of our faith not as a rainbow of 7 colors, the way you kids have learned the 7 principles for so many years, but as a rainbow-hued patchwork quilt. Rainbows are naturally occurring. They descend beautifully and whole from the heavens. Our principles, on the other hand, our sources of inspiration, our aspirations, our values, are crafted by human hands. They do not come down from above. They're passed through the generations, pieced together from whatever they had on hand. Seams are torn out and restitched here and there. And most importantly, they're put together with obvious care and love to serve the practical purpose of keeping someone warm. Being a living tradition means taking our faith in our own hands and continuing the work of shaping it into something that will serve its purpose and keep future generations warm. We're trimming frayed edges and replacing faded fabric and occasionally grabbing the seam ripper and doing a major overhaul. And we're blessed with the knowledge that such work has been done before, and we survived it. And we grew. The quilt survived it. In fact, we know on some level that the work is exactly what makes us us. That we are a religion defined by change, a living tradition. We're also a religion defined by the democratic process. So before any of these proposed changes are made official within the national organization of the UUA, there will be a great deal of discussion, debate, proposed amendments, voting, tallying, and conversation. This June, at the General Assembly of UU congregations being held in Pittsburgh, there will be opportunities for delegates to recommend amendments, and the final draft has to receive a majority vote from all the delegates assembled, virtual and in person. And then next summer, 2024, the same final draft will have to pass with a 2/3 vote in the 2024 General Assembly. If either vote fails, a similar proposal can't be considered for 2 years. Our congregation, UUCUC, can send up to 6 delegates to General Assembly to vote on this and many other national issues relevant to our larger faith movement. Serving as a delegate is something you can do even virtually if traveling to Pittsburgh isn't in the cards. So please, if this topic makes you feel excited for the future and where our faith is going, or if it makes you want to leap out of your pew and start a debate, talk to me after the service about what it might look like to serve as an official delegate this summer. This is a process that requires all our voices. Now, summer of 2024 is still far away. There will be plenty of time to discuss and learn about what these changes might mean for us if they're adopted. But in the meantime, I'm here to celebrate the fact that this is something that can be voted on at all. To celebrate the fact that we have the power to take our tradition in our own hands and shape it ourselves. Our beloved 7 principles, 8 principles, were once written and voted on by people just like us, doing their best, making corrections, growing, changing, piecing something together that has given us the ability to continue that iterative process of change into a future that they couldn't have imagined. So may we continue to change, continue to grow, to move. May we together do the work of keeping our living tradition alive today and far into the future. Amen. I'll invite you to please stand if standing is comfortable for you and join in singing hymn number 1028 in the teal hymnal, The Fire of Commitment.
From the light of days remembered, burns a beacon bright and clear, guiding hands and hearts and spirits into faith set freedom free.
be seated. There's a hymn in our hymnal, As Tranquil Streams, which was actually sung on the floor of the assembly where the final votes in favor of the Unitarian and Universalist merger were being counted 62 years ago now. A great deal has changed for us since then. A great deal will continue to change. Finding the right words that will last for generations might be harder than finding the symbolism of flames and flowers. But the words of this hymn seem to resonate just as powerfully now as they did 60 years ago. So let me close with the words of that hymn from UU minister and composer Marion Franklin Ham. As tranquil streams that meet and merge and flow as one to seek the sea, our kindred hearts and minds unite to build a church that shall be free. Free from the bonds that bind the mind to narrow thought and lifeless creed, free from a social code that fails to serve the cause of human need. A freedom that reveres the past but trusts the dawning future more and bids the soul in search of truth adventure boldly and explore. As we extinguish our chalice flame and prepare to go out into the world once more, please join me in saying our extinguishing words from UU Minister Reverend Elizabeth Selly Jones. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we bury in our hearts until we are together again. Thank you. And when you go, go in peace.